Ecosystems, like this one, represent a dynamic, complex machine made up of thousands of different parts, all interacting with one another in some way. When we think about ecosystems, we often focus on the impact of abiotic or environmental factors, like water availability, on the organisms living in that ecosystem. But it's important to remember that ecosystems are also defined by their biotic factors, the complex network of interactions between organisms of the same and different species. Take, for example, the mutualistic relationship between corals and the single-celled zooxanthellae that live inside them. Without this relationship, the Great Barrier Reef just wouldn't exist. In many cases, these important interactions rely on communication between very different species. Classic examples of this include the bright coloration of many toxic species that serve to warn potential predators, or the flowers of many plants which have evolved to appeal to and attract pollinator insects. But in some cases, organisms of different species communicate with each other unintentionally. Professor Robert McGrath and his team at the Australian National University have been studying how superb fairy wrens eavesdropped on the calls of other species of birds living in their suburban Canberra ecosystems.
Rob, what is interspecific eavesdropping?
Well, usually when animals communicate, they communicate with members of their own species, so like I'm talking with you. Eavesdropping means that someone's listening in on our conversation, and interspecific eavesdropping means that a member of another species is listening in on what we're saying. So interspecific eavesdropping in the natural world, in amongst the birds that I study, for example, means there's one species of bird listening to the calls or songs of another species of bird.
See. And why would one species actually want to listen to the calls of another species?
Well, I guess the short answer is they're after information. Lots of birds have alarm calls that are specific to particular types of predators. So, for example, a lot of the birds I study have what we call aerial alarm calls, or you might call them hawk alarm calls, which warn others that there's a hawk flying nearby, and then you need to dash into a bush to escape. And if you can eavesdrop on the alarm calls of other species, then you find out about predators, where they are, and maybe what sort of predator. So that's great if you want to avoid being eaten.
So, in your most recent study, you've been looking at how these birds go about learning the calls of other species. In that study, what did you do, and what did you find out? Well,
that's right, Andrew. One of the puzzles we've been studying for quite a while is how birds know what other birds are saying. A bit like when we're listening to someone speaking another language, how would we know what the words mean? So what we did is we made some predators like this one. This is a model sparrowhawk, and we flew these towards the birds. We lined them towards the birds, and at the same time we played back a novel sound that they hadn't heard before. And we did this 8 times over the course of 2 days. So gave them the opportunity to associate the sound with danger, or apparent danger. We weren't actually endangering the birds. And then we came back afterwards and played back the sound to see whether they'd learnt that sound meant danger, and if so, they should flee to cover. So that was the general strategy we're using.
Yep. And the birds, they actually did learn, is that right?
They did, yeah. So much to our relief, it was actually it was a very hard experiment. It sounds simple. It's pretty hard, but so. Indeed, if we played back a sound beforehand, before we trained them, then they completely ignored it. Then we did the training with the hawk and the playbacks, and then we came back afterwards. And then if we played back the sound through a speaker, then they shot for cover immediately without there being a hawk around at all. So clearly they'd learnt that the sound meant danger, and they knew that there was likely to be a hawk coming when they heard that sound. So yeah, they learnt to recognise the alarm call of another species, effectively.
Well, thanks very much for that, Rob.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
So there you have it. Superb fairy wrens eavesdrop on the alarm calls of other species of bird to get an early warning of approaching danger. While it's clear that this interaction is beneficial for the wrens, what do you think it means for the birds they eavesdrop on? How are they affected? And what about the hawks? How do you think this eavesdropping affects their interaction with the wrens? or for that matter, with the other bird species.